Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Are you ready? I think I started before I started the video. Anyway, here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so I support you. This shout out is for our friend. We're gonna do the spinny wheel here. And who do we got? We've got Rita. All right. Alright, so if you watched our shout-out video for our 1K 2-year celebration, you know that Rita is a hauling channel. It's Rita a Haul. So check her out, like, share, comment. Let her know we sent you by. And have a good day. Bye. All tangled up, there we go.
All tangled up?
Yes, I'm all tangled up. Alright, Mr. Bud, tell us something interesting.
Well, bearded historian, I wish you a Groundhog, is known as Pennsylvania German Groundhog's Day. Popular North American tradition observed in the United States and Canada on February the 2nd, Thursday, derives from the Pennsylvania Dutch superstition that if a groundhog emerges from its burrow on this day and sees its shadow due to clear weather, it will retreat to its den, allowing winter to go on for 6 more weeks. If it does not see its shadow because of cloudiness, spring will arrive early. Now, this tradition remains popular in the 21st century. Studies have found no consistent association between the groundhog seeing its shadow and the subsequent arrival time of spring-like weather. The weather lore was brought from German-speaking areas where the badger is a forecasting animal, and it appears to be an enhanced version of the lore that clear weather on the Christian festival of Candlemas forebodes a prolonged winter. Now, the Groundhog Day ceremony, held at Puxatawney in western Pennsylvania, centering on a semi-mythical groundhog named Puxatawney Phil, also shown in the movie Groundhog's Day, has become the most frequently attended ceremony. The Grunzau lodges in the Pennsylvania Dutch country and southeastern part of that state observe the occasion as well, and other cities in the United States and Canada have adopted this event. Now, the Pennsylvania Dutch were immigrants from the German-speaking areas of Europe. The Germans had a tradition of marking Candlemas, February the 2nd, as Badger Day, on which if a badger emerging from its den encountered a sunny day, thereby casting a shadow, it presaged 4 more weeks of winter. Now, Germany, Candlemas was primarily a Catholic festival, but also known by the German Protestant Lutheran churches. In folk religion, various traditions and superstitions continued to be linked to the holiday, although this was discouraged by the Protestant reformers in the 16th century. Notably, several traditions akin to weather lores used the weather at Candlemas to predict the start of spring. The weather-predicting animal on Candlemas usually was a badger, although regionally the animal was either the bear or the fox. The original weather-predicting animal in Germany had been...
All right, who had to go search out the bear or fox before they did the groundhog?
And how many people were lost to the bear? Where's Ed? Well, Ed is a snack now. You can go talk to the bear.
Because he woke up the bear.
Yeah.
He's a dum-dum head.
Hello, stupid. The original weather predicting, had been the bear, another hibernating mammal, but they grew scarce. The lore became altered. Similarly, the groundhog lore had been noted for the German formula. I'm going to butcher this. Translates, if the badger sunbathes during Candlemas week, for 4 more weeks he will be back in his hole. Slight variant of this found in the collection of weather lore. farmers' rules printed in Austria, 1823. Well, the groundhog, as Pennsylvanians maintained the same tradition as the Germans on Groundhog Day, except the winter spell would be prolonged for 6 weeks instead of 4. The Pennsylvania Dutch, the badger became the dachs, which in Dutch referred to groundhog. Now, the standard term for groundhog was Groundhog, from German dachs, which was the regional variant in York country, being Groundsau, a direct translation of the English name, according to a 19th century book on the dialect. This form was a regional variant, according to one 19th century source. However, the weather superstition that begins, Der Zweit Haring in Dachenzau, wann die Grundsau sind, February 2nd is Groundhog Day, if the groundhog sees the shadow, is given a comment that in all 14 counties in the Dutch Pennsylvania country in a 1915 monograph. In the Thomas R. Brendel collection of Pennsylvania German folklore, Brendel preserved this following lore from the local Pennsylvania German dialect. When the groundhog sees his shadow on the morning of February 2nd, he will again go into his hole and remain there for 6 weeks. But if the morning of February the 2nd is overcast, the groundhog will remain outside and there will be another spring. The form groundsau has been used by the Lodge in Allentown and elsewhere. Brendel also recorded the name Groundsaudag, or Groundhog Day, in Lebanon country, and Dachsdag, Groundhog Day, in Northampton County. Even Victor Hugo had to tone in Les Miserables, 1864, discussing the day as follows. It was the 2nd of February, that ancient Candlemas day, whose treacherous sun, the precursor of 6 weeks of cold, inspired Matthew Landsberg with 2 lines which were deservedly become classic. Let it glimmer, the bear goes back into his cave. Now, the groundhog was also once known by the obsolete Latin alias Actromus monax. The genus name signified bear rat. The European marmot is of the same genus and was formerly called Actromus alpinus. It is speculated that the European counterpart might have had some lore similar to the groundhog attached to it. Now, the German version, with the introduction of the badger or other beasts, was the expansion of the more simpler tradition. People, if they saw sunny and clear on Christmas Day, people expected winter to continue. The simpler version was surmised by the English couplet that read, if Candlemas is fair and clear, there'll be 'twas winters in the year, with the equivalent phrases in French and German. At the existence of corresponding Latin couplet has been suggested as evidence of the great antiquity of this tradition. Now, the use of candles on the Christian Candlemas was inspired by the Roman rite for the goddess Febra, in which the procession of the candles was February 2nd, according to Yoder. The Roman calendar, in turn, had Celtic origins. Candlemas concurs with Imbolc, one of the Celtic's cross-quarter days, the 4 days which mark the midpoints between solstice and equinox. Scholar Rice Carpenter in 1946 emphasized that the Badger Day tradition was strong in Germany, but absent on British Isles, as he referred to it as a reason the U.S. Groundhog Day was not brought by immigrants from these places. There did exist a belief among the Roman Catholics in Britain that the hedgehog predicted the length of winter, or so it has been claimed, but without demonstration of its age, in a publication by the Scotland-born American journalist Thomas C. Macmillan in 1886, and American writer-journalist Samuel Adams Drake's book published in 1900. In the Gaelic calendar of Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man, Bridget's Day, February 1st, is the day of predicting the weather. While in Scotland, the animal that heralds the spring on that day is a snake, folklorist Kevin Donier records the lore of hedgehogs being observed for this omen. In Irish folk tradition, St. Brigid's Day, 1st February, is the first day of spring and thus the farmer's year. To see a hedgehog was good weather sign, for the hedgehog comes out of the hole in which he has spent the winter, looks about to judge the weather, and returns to his burrow if bad weather is going to continue. If he stays out, it means that he knows that mild weather is coming. Now, Pennsylvania, to that nature, the observance first occurred in German communities in Pennsylvania, according to known records. The earliest mention of Groundhog's Day is an entry on February 2nd, 1840, in the diary of James L. Morris of Morgantown in Pennsylvania Dutch country. According to the book on the subject by Don Yoder, This was a Welsh enclave, but the diarist was commenting on his neighbors who have German stock. Now, the first reported news of a Groundhog Day observance was arguably made by the Puxatawny Spirit newspaper, Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, in 1886. Up to the time of going to press, the beast had not seen his shadow. However, it was not until the following year in 1887 that the first Groundhog Day considered official was commemorated, there with a group making the trip to the Gobbler's Knob, part of town, to consult with the groundhog. People have gathered annually at the spot of the event ever since. Now, Clymer Freyas, born 1867, died 1942, who was the city editor of the Puxatawny Spirit, is credited as the father who conceived the idea of Groundhog Day. It was also suggested that Puxatawny was where all the groundhog events originated, from where it spread to other parts of the United States and Canada. Groundhog Day celebrations of the 1880s were carried out by the Puxatawny Elks Lodge. The lodge members were the genesis of the Groundhog Club formed later, which continued the Groundhog Day tradition. But the lodge started out being interested in groundhog as a game animal for food. It started to serve groundhog at the lodge and had been organizing a hunting party on a day each year in late summer. I wouldn't stick my head out either, dude.
Chilly.
The chronologies, given that the somewhat inconsistent in literature, the first groundhog picnic was held in 1887, according to one source, but given as post-circa 1889 by a local historian in a journal. The historian states that around 1889 the meat was served at the lodge's banquet, and organized hunt started after that. Either way, the Puxatawny Groundhog Club... Don't stick your head up, dude!
You stick your head up, you die!
You're no kidding. No
Is
wonder
this where
he's not
Whack-A-Mole
coming out
came
of this
from?
hole. There's all these guys looking for him.
Is this where Whack-A-Mole came from?
Whack-a-mole, whack-a-hog. It took place annually, interestingly enough, in September. So the hunt portion of it became increasingly a ritualized formality because the practical procurement of meat had to occur well ahead of the time for marinating. A drink called Groundhog Punch was also served. The flavor is described as a cross between pork and chicken. Ew!
Sounds like soup broth.
Yeah. Would you like some broth? No, thanks. I'm good. The hunted feast did not attract enough outside interest, and the practice was discontinued. No. The groundhog was not named Phil until 1961, possibly an indirect reference to Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Today, the largest Groundhog Day celebration is held in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, where crowds as large as 40,000 gather each year, nearly 8 times the year-round population of the town, kind of like our rally.
I know.
The average draw has about...
For one day.
For one day. The average draw has been about 2,000 until the 1993 film, Groundhog Day, in which they said at the festivities of Puxatawny, after which the attendance rose to about 10,000. The official Phil is pretended to be a supercentenarian, having been the same forecasting beast since 1887.
Sure.
Yeah. In 2019, the 133rd year of the tradition, the groundhog was summoned to come out at 7:25 a.m., but did not see his shadow. Fans of the Puxatawny Phil awaited his arrival, starting at 6 a.m., followed by a live stream provided by Visit Pennsylvania. The live stream has been a tradition of the past several years, allowing more than a few to ever watch the animal meteorologist. In 2000,
Of course they're live streaming it. Why wouldn't they?
Exactly. It's the 21st century. 2021 was the 135th, and for the first time, much of the inner circle members were required to wear a mask. The groundhog was summoned at 7:25 a.m. on the 2nd and saw its shadow. Due to COVID-19, the ceremony was held behind closed doors and no fans were allowed to attend. In 2022, for the 136th
remember
time,
that one.
Yeah, on 2022, on the 136th time of the event, the groundhog saw its shadow, predicting 6 more weeks of winter. Now, as we noted, that there are other places that do take part and have their own special deals. The Slumbering Groundhog Lodge, which was formed in 1907, has carried out ceremonies that take place in Quarryville, Pennsylvania. It is considered a contending rival for the Puxatawny over Groundhog Day fame. It employs a taxidermic specimen, a stuffed woodchuck. Southern Pennsylvania Groundhog Lodges.
How does a stuffed groundhog go back in his hole?
Yank real hard with the rope.
I see.
Southeastern Pennsylvania Groundhog Lodges celebrate the holiday with For Somalinge, social events made in which food is served, speeches are made, and one or more gispel, plays or skits are performed for entertainment. The Pennsylvania German dialect is the only language spoken at the event, and those who speak English pay a penalty, usually in the form of a nickel or a dime or quarter per word spoken, with the money put to her.
That would cost you a fortune,
no
babes.
kidding. I would be coughing up a couple $100 probably.
You would be broke by the time we left.
Mm-hmm. In Milltown, New Jersey, Milltown Mell was purchased in 2008 by Sunbury, Pennsylvania, by Jerry and Kathy Golian, and lived in a cage in the Golians' backyard. Mell's first event was at the family business, the Bronson and Guthrie Funeral Home. There's just something wrong about that. Folks,
what is wrong with that?
We have a live groundhog, or imitation groundhog, around dead people. With later offense moved to the American Legion Post with free coffee and donuts served afterwards. Mel died in 2021. Stonewall Jackson, another one, predicts at the Space Farm Zoo and Museum. Essex Ed, the groundhog, and Otis the hedgehog predict at Turtleback Zoo. Great Neck Greta of Great Neck, Long Island, New York, predicted in 2020. Quigley of the Hamptons, resident of Save the Animals Rescue Foundation, predicts at Corog Village Fire Department. Ooh, it's a fire department.
Fun.
Yes.
We would like that.
Staten Island Chuck was the stage name of an official weather forecasting woodchuck at New York City, housed at the Staten Island Zoo. In 2009, Chuck bit then Mayor Mike Bloomberg, prompting zoo officials to quietly replace him with his daughter Charlotte.
What?
In 2014, Mayor Bill de Blasio famously dropped Charlotte during a ceremony, visibly disturbing many of the children present for the event.
No.
Charlotte's untimely death a week later prompted rumors she was killed by the fall. Although the zoo later said this is unlikely due to the cause of Charlotte's demise. As a result, Bill de Blasio has not participated in the tradition since. Spiked the woodchuck. Dunkirk Dave, a stage name for numerous groundhogs who have filled the role since 1960, is the local groundhog for Western New York, handled by Bob Will, typewriter repairman who runs a rescue shelter for groundhogs. Will is adamant that Dunkirk Dave does not actually predict the date of the spring because it is fixed by calendars, but instead predicts the harshness of the remainder of winter. Like that idea. French Creek Freddy is West Virginia's resident groundhog meteorologist, a resident of the West Virginia State Wildlife Center in French Creek. Freddy made his debut in 1978 and boasts an accuracy rate approaching 50%. On Groundhog Day, he predicted 6 more weeks of winter with the mayor of Buckhannon and members of the community in attendance. Now, out here in the Midwest, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin is the self-proclaimed groundhog capital of the world. This title was taken in response to Puxatawny Spirit's 1952 newspaper article describing Sun Prairie as a remote 2-cow village buried somewhere in the wilderness.
Ooh.
In 2015, Jimmy the Groundhog bit the ear of Mayor John Froon, and the story quickly went viral worldwide. The next day, a mayoral proclamation absolved Jimmy the 11th of any wrongdoing. Buckeye Chuck, the Ohio's official state groundhog, is one of 2 weather-predicting groundhogs. He resides in Marion, Ohio. Woodstock Willie of Woodstock, Illinois, is the shooting location for the film Groundhog Day. Now, down to the south, D.C., at the DuPont Circle, Groundhog Day features Potomac Phil, another taxidermic specimen.
Why are we using dead hedgehogs?
Because they're easier to get to vote for the right people if paid. Sorry, that was just personal opinion. But his first appearance from 2012 to 2018, Phil's spring predictions invariably agreed with those of the more lively Puxatawny Phil, who made his predictions half an hour earlier. In addition, Phil always predicted the correctly 6 more months of political gridlock.
Oh, no.
However, after being accused of collusion in 2018, Potomac Phil contradicted the Puxatawny Phil in 2019 and further predicted 2 more years of political insanity. I wonder what he's been saying about the last 2 years. Birmingham.
I don't want to look it up now.
Yeah. Birmingham Bill at the Birmingham Zoo was taking a break from predicting in 2015. Smart animal. In Raleigh, North Carolina, an annual event at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences includes Sir Walter Raleigh. According to the museum officials, Wally has been correct 58% of the time versus Puxatawny Phil's 39%. And elsewhere in the American South, there is General Beauregard Lee, who makes predictions from Lilburn, Georgia. The University of Dallas in Irving, Texas, has boasted hosting the second largest groundhog celebration in the world. Now, Canada, the day is observed with various ceremonies at other locations in North America beyond the United States. Due to Nova Scotia's Atlantic time zone, Shubenacadie Sam makes the first Groundhog Day prediction in North America. Dax Day, from the German Dax, is Groundhog Day in the dialect of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, in French Canada, where the day is known as Jour la Marmotte. Fred la Marmotte of Vallée des Espoirs has been the representative forecaster of the province of Quebec since 2009. A study also shows that in Quebec, the marmot, or groundhog, are regarded as Candlemas weather-predicting beasts in some scattered spots, but the bear is the more usual animal. So we need to go up to bear country on the 2nd.
Got it.
What are you guys doing over the fence? We're trying to predict the weather.
I'm sure that they'll accept it.
I'm pretty sure they accept it, you know.
I'm sure that they'll do this.
Wallerton Willie, forecasts annually from Wallerton, Ontario. Balzac Billy, the prairie prognosticator, a man-sized groundhog mascot who prognosticates weather on Groundhog Day from Balzac, Alberta. Nanaimo, a ferry port city in Vancouver Island in British Columbia, presents Chopper, Marlou, Van Lisviolet, all wild Vancouver Island marmots for forecasts. Oh, they got a whole series.
Wow.
Now, accuracy, as we had noted, statistics-wise for Puxatawny Phil, kept by the Groundhog Club, cares for the animal, has predicted 103 forecasts for winter and just 17 for an early spring. And most assessments for his accuracy have been given lower than what would be expected with the random chance, and StormFacts Almanac giving an estimate of 39%, while meteorologist Tim Rosh of Weather Underground has it down to 36%. 47% record in that time span while predicting early spring. The National Centers of Environmental Information, using a basic math of above normal temperatures for early spring, below normal temperatures for more winter, placed Puxatawny Phil's accuracy at 40% for a 10-year period preceding 2019. Other poor results from analysis are reported by the Farmer's Almanac, which itself has been known for forecasts of questionable accuracy, as exactly 50%, and the National Geographic Society reports only 28% success. So almost as good as our regular weatherman.
Cool.
But a Middlebury College team found that a long-term analysis of temperature high-low predictions were 70% accurate, although when the groundhog predicted early spring, it was usually wrong. Canadian meteorologist Cindy Day has estimated that Nova Scotia's Shubenacadie Sam has an accuracy rate of about 45% compared to the Walton Willie of Ontario. So a good 20-point jump right there. Part of the problem with pinning down an accuracy rate for the groundhog is what constitutes an early spring is not clearly defined. Assessments of the accuracy of the groundhog, such as Staten Island Chuck, do use an objective formula, in Chuck's case a majority of days that reach 40 degrees in New York City between Groundhog Day and the March equinox. Now, here's our favorite word, pseudoscientific evaluation. Predictions based on an animal behavior used to be given more credence in the past when stores of food became scarce as winter progressed. One theory states that the groundhog naturally comes out of hibernation in central Pennsylvania in early February because of the increasing average temperature. Under this theory, if German settlement had been centered further north, Groundhog Day would have taken place at a later date. However, the observed behaviors of groundhogs in central New Jersey was that they mostly came out of their burrows in mid-March, regardless of Groundhog Day weather or not. There was several different ways of defining when spring begins, but the most common methods when doing so, the first day of spring is around March 20th, which is always just under 7 weeks after February 2nd, even on leap years. Also, the idea of spring arriving early is a highly subjective notion, which could arguably refer to almost anything from several days to several weeks. At any rate, Groundhog Day serves as a convenient and whimsical milestone to mark the end of the darkest 3 months of the year, November, December, and January, in the Northern Hemisphere, and bookends nicely with Halloween, the two holidays being opposite and roughly equidistant in time from the winter solstice, when Halloween festivals start after sunset.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and taking place in the nighttime, with Groundhog being a celebration of sunrise in the morning. Now, the biggest thing that's kind of fun around here, Hill City, for a couple of years, tried to have what was known as the Yellow Belly Marmot Festival. It was a fun-filled time of trying to get people to buy things in a small town in the middle of the winter. I don't know if it was really very successful or not. We went down and attended it one year. I don't think they do it anymore. Likewise, the big problem about celebrating, like they said, clear days and stuff like that. Around here in South Dakota today, we had a clear sky. And the temperature varied from 3 degrees up into 22 degrees all day long. Mm-hmm. So you might have sunshine, but that doesn't mean you're going to have warm weather. So if your groundhog is looking for a sign that it's going to be warm, probably not going to do too well guessing off of his own shadow. But that was our little trip into the history books for a historical event. Everyone enjoy Groundhog's Day wherever you are in the world, in the country. And be sure to check out the movie. And it's a hilarious movie, Groundhog's Day. This has been the Bearded Historian. You folks have a good one, and we'll see you later.
We'll see you in the spring.
Yes. Sometime down there.